Good morning, good afternoon. How is everyone today? We love to have you here. Good morning, good afternoon. How is everyone today? We love to have you here. Good morning, good afternoon. Michael, I was getting feedback.
Yeah, I fixed that.
Okay, thank you. Wow, I was talking to myself and then I was talking to myself, right, guys? We're so happy to see you here. Thank you for joining us. We are so grateful for your weekend, for your time, and we will not waste it. This is our last session of the year. For those of you who have been with us, we can't believe you came back. Thank you. But for those of you who are new to us, Michael and I get together and we have had over a year of powerful conversations on personal growth and development, on critical issues that we feel like not that many people are talking about, or if they are, the conversation just isn't deep enough. So we do this live once a month, and you'll find we don't hold back. We talk about what's real to us, and we want this to be accessible to everyone. As Michael said, my name is Suzanne Buchanan, and we're going to start off a little bit differently this time. And for those of you who have not joined us, this is your session. Be prepared to be engaged. And we love your engagement. We love your comments, and we will actually talk to you. So be prepared because this is your session. But we wanted to ask you, it's December. It's almost the end of the year. We've survived a pandemic. We've survived, and we're surviving economic instability. How are you? Are you okay? And when was the last time you stopped just a moment to ask yourself, how am I doing? Am I really okay? And when people ask us this, how you doing? We walk by people in the street. We just answer fine. It's kind of automatic. And I don't know if it's because we don't feel like they really care or we don't want to get into it. But when you ask people, how are you? Do you care? Are you ready to hear what they have to say? We wanted to set this session apart a little differently because this is about recovery. And we have brought in one of my favorite people, Layla Grace from Grace Revealed, and she focuses on recovery. She's a specialist in that. And so we wanted her to jump in this conversation deep with us today. And Layla, would you kick us off with a little exercise?
Sure, I'd love to. Hey, everybody, and thank you so much for the invitation. Thanks for having me. Okay, so I'm going to just start off. We're going to just dive right into it. So I'm going to ask you to come with me and come all the way in and sit all the way down. So if you can, if you're willing to, join us with video if you can. There's no pressure here. Take what you like and leave the rest. But this is a practice that is going to help me help you to literally take away the gold, the nuggets out of our time here today. So in order to do that, we're going to do some preparation work. All right. So I am again going to ask you to come all the way in, sit all the way down. I'm going to ask a few quick questions that you don't have to answer. You can. But who likes stress? Does anybody like stress? Use it to your advantage. Sometimes it can be good. Deadlines. I know, right? Who's feeling extra stress right now? Can you feel it in your shoulders, your tension, your neck? Ooh, I know. Okay. 1 to 5, 1 being like, I'm chill, I got this. 5's like, I'm not sure if I'm okay. Where are you guys at? 1 to 5. 3, okay. 4, 3. Yeah. I'd say I'm like between a 2 and a 3 right now. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just kind of take you through a physical exercise we're going to do. It'll take maybe a minute minute and a half. We're going to do some breathing. And this isn't like some woo-woo stuff. This is for our parasympathetic nervous system to just calm down and be ready to receive. All right. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is really good for just the personal experience, is we're all human. And what makes us on the same playing field is that we've all experienced pain and we've all moved through the pain. And so as we're in a very stressful time, this is the last month of the year, holy smokes. I'm going to ask you to breathe in some peace, some clarity, some focus. And I'm going to ask you to breathe out stress, anxiety, but especially distractions right now. Okay. So we're going to breathe in some peace, some clarity, some focus. And we're going to breathe out stress, anxiety, and distractions. So I'm going to talk us through it, and then I'm going to ask you if you can mirror what I'm doing, whether you choose to be on video or not. Just please check out what I'm doing with my visuals so that you can follow along with me. So we're going to breathe in and hold it, but we're also going to move our head and tilt our chin upward. All right, so if you want to close your eyes, you can. You can relax your shoulders. We're going to breathe in. A deep breath, send the breath to your belly. Breathe in. Hold it in there, hold it in there, hold it in there, tilt your head back. And then we're going to breathe out stress, anxiety, and distractions through our mouth. If you can, just blow them out as you bring your head back to center. Take a natural breath in. You can roll your shoulders back, relax them. We're going to take our head and turn it this way. You can follow me wherever feels comfortable. Give your neck a little stretch. Breathe in, clarity, peace, peace of mind. Breathe in and hold it. You can breathe in and hold the air in your brain, and then breathe out. Distractions, anxiety, stress, not welcome here. All right, we're going to roll our head back to center. Breathe normally. In and out through the nose. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay, we're going to turn our head the opposite direction. Give your neck a little stretch. Okay, we're going to take a deep breath in. Send all the air to your brain. Deep breath in through your nose. We're going to breathe out anything extra we're carrying we don't want today. Out through the mouth. Roll your head back. Keep your chin pointing up. We're going to breathe in. Peace, clarity, focus. And breathe out stress, anxiety, and distractions. And you can gently bring your head back to center. Breathe out. All right, the last thing we're going to do before we get in to the rest of our time here is I want you to take your hands and I just want you to touch your ears really ever so gently, kind of just a loving touch. And if you're feeling extra stress, maybe you give a little bit of tug on your ears. Maybe you massage a little bit of the back of your ears, just a little bit. You can even massage behind your scalp a little bit behind your ears. I just do one finger and kind of just massage a little bit behind. And then you can kind of run your finger down the back of your neck. It just allows your body to be so present with what we're going to do next. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Really, it's a gift for you too.
Love it. Layla, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. I'm Layla Grace with Grace Revealed. I'm a survivor of childhood and adulthood trauma. I am gratefully recovering from poor choices. And today I'm sort of obsessed with the benefits of self-care. I specialize in the benefits of self-care, and my life's mission is to help us recover from life's wounds. All right, it's my specialty. I love to talk about self-care. I'm here from sunny South Carolina. I'm
Mm.
originally from Syracuse, New York. I am a traveler of the United States and some overseas travel. And I love gaining perspectives when I get to hear from other people's experience, strength, and hope from their journey. So thanks for having me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Michael, do you want to say hi?
Sure. My name is Michael Danklos of Elevate Your Best, and I am a life vision outfitter. In normal terms, that would be a life coach, but I really focus on what that journey is, why we're on it, how we get there, and breaking it down into small pieces to accomplish that. For me, my massively transformative purpose is to guide men to relate to others in a way that isn't sexual, predatory, or bullying, and through service and authentic connections become authentic leaders. This is important to me because I know that my journey has been recovering from, as Layla put it, poor choices. And we all have an opportunity to learn from those and let them go once we have the lesson. And that's really where I teach from and what I hope to help others accomplish. What about you, Suzanne?
Thank you. And guys, did you get something between Michael and Layla? Ownership of where they are, ownership that they are exactly where they're supposed to be because of the decisions they've made, and ownership of the poor decisions they have made, which, by the way, have led to amazing opportunities to help others transform their lives. So I just point that out for you to know, if you're not perfect, you're in the right place. If you're not done yet, you're in the right place. If you're looking for others who are committed to becoming the best they can be, who aren't quite there yet, you're in the right place. You're where you were meant to be. And for me, my background, I'm a troublemaker, right? I'm a conversation starter. I am a mediator. I bring people together for powerful conversations. And I do so through my communications business and some consulting as well, Carrot Communications. So I have a background of working in deep-rooted conflict, global conflict, and issues relating discrimination and racism. So powerful conversations, you'll usually find me in the middle of them, if not starting them, and asking ourselves to go a little deeper and walk towards our greatest accountability. So thank you so much for your time. And we just wanted to cover a little bit of what to expect out of this session, what we hope and pray that you get out of this session. Michael, do you want to review that?
Sure. So we really do want this to be an intentional session and at the same time be a conversation. Yes, we do have a couple of panelists here that we're actually talking about this. But we also want you to be involved in this conversation. So if that's in the chat, we may be having people raise hands and actually bring you on and talk with us. The real baseline for us for around this particular subject is we really want people to realize that recovery is part of your growth cycle. And it's required, not optional. Us building in this into our schedule because life is cyclic, just like the seasons. The other aspect of this we really want is to have practical exercises that can elicit recovery in your life, is some practical tools. So yes, there's this idea, but in action is actually where we test those ideas and actually make them into our reality. And then the other piece is kind of where we started with this is, how often are you pausing to reflect so you intentionally recover? Intentionality is a huge part of what I bring to my business. And I hope that everyone learns this. If it's living consciously, if it's living intentionally, it is really actually almost building in your recovery first before you actually build in what actions you're going to be taking so that you have that to look forward to so you can deliver 100% at your best as often as possible. So I'm curious, Layla, for you, how do you take inventory of this necessity for recovery?
Okay. It's kind of interesting. So in the simplest way, I'd say taking inventory is mind, body, and spirit. Kind of scanning, where am I at today? What is the quality of the landscape of my mind? What does it look like? Are there weeds in the garden? Is there a flourishing, colorful, vibrant, interactive garden? Or is it like grabbing hold, or, just barely getting by for life? Physically, how is my body doing? Am I doing okay with normal tasks, or am I drained? Am I losing it? And then spiritually, what is my spirit doing? How am I connecting with God? How am I connecting with the people that I am placed on this earth to love and connect with? So those are my inventory points that I work with. That is a really good place to start for how I take inventory with myself, and write it down so that I can check back the next day or the next month or the next year to say, I was here and I'm moving forward. The recovery for me, like you had said, and I put in the chat too, it's not optional. It's necessary. And to keep moving forward. It's kind of that, so what? We've been here. Now what? How are we going to bounce back? But how are we going to bounce back better? How are we going to move forward stronger, healthily? Because I truly believe people wouldn't be here today to elevate their mindset if they didn't want to move forward better, stronger.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Suzanne, what about you? How are you taking inventory in order to trigger this recovery process?
I think for me, there are ongoing habits that I have that allow me and enable me to check in with myself physically, health wise, physically, also like my strength, my endurance, my vibrance, my energy. So there's all kinds of aspects to the physical for me. I think spiritually, that is through more meditative practices. And I would say also, though, having putting it to calendar, being intentional and building it in is really important. Michael and I've talked a lot about habits as well. And I think for inventory, you have to build it in, because we won't always feel it. We won't always know it. We won't always catch the signs. And so being very intentional about building in that practice. Is it on your calendar to spend that time? Maybe for some of us that are kind of new to this, we need a monthly check-in. For others of us that are hyper specific and have laser focused goals, you need to check in. Like the Lifebook community, right? You've got these 12 areas. We've got 12 areas of our life. So how are we scheduling our maintenance, our awareness? And after a while, you'll find some of these practices become like autonomic. You can do this almost as a reflex. So, and that would be the goal, to be so tuned in, tapped in, that you immediately with each decision, oh, my emotional GPS says this is off, or I'm feeling this today. So as dialed in as you can be, great, but we're not all there yet. Michael, what about you? What do you do? How do you take inventory?
So for me, it's a couple of different ways. So one is actually through a journaling practice. Yes, it's writing it down. It's getting my thoughts out. And I've got very specific questions that I do in that process that elicits some of those responses of what is the lesson? What did I do well today? What can I have improved on? So that's one key practice for me. But there's also this weekly check-in as well, as I'm actually part of a couple of different accountability groups in various forms. And each of those provides a different level of support. And as I'm relaying my story for what's happened for the week, that's another way that as I'm speaking it, I'm actually experiencing it again of how am I doing really around this. And there can be a tendency for us to say everything's great, but in the right accountability group you can say, wow, this week sucked and this is why it sucked. And that's another way for me to take inventory. Is this in that authentic space of saying, hey, this was a challenge because of this, and this. This was the obstacle. This is how I overcame it. This is what I learned from it. But I also want to come back a little bit to this concept of the recovery is necessary, not optional. And for me, at least the way that it's shown up in my life is if I don't plan in that recovery, my body decides it for me. Is I will get sick, I will get tired, I will actually make mistakes. I was actually listening to somebody else in one of the other exercises earlier today, and they had asked the universe, please give me all that I need in order to actually move my life forward in this life, and then proceeded to get into an accident and a traumatic brain injury that forced them to slow down. It's like that recovery, the universe has said, you will recover now. And it's like, my goal now at this point is that I listen to those messages from my body, from my spirit, from my emotional state, so it doesn't get to that traumatic level anymore, because I've been there. So I have a reason not to go back there. So how I take that inventory is with the people around me, as well as my own personal practice, to really check in on, I even kind of have an energy level thing as well, or how was this week? And I love it every day to be a 10, but I've got to be real.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to own the fact that, wow, I made these 3 choices today, and that actually led this to be a really crummy day. And now I get an opportunity to make tomorrow better than that.
Cool. And, guys, something that Michael's also saying, having accountability groups and accountability people, there are several ways I've seen that go. One is, of course, your honest, almost confession of something and your honest sharing of something. But another one is an accountability partner that knows you, sees you, and speaks to you with that loving power of authority, in that they can say, hey, you're burning it hard. Are you okay? And kind of call you out also. And it's very important that you have people in your life that know your goals and won't let you slide, or will be there and say something like, wow, I see this pattern. Is everything okay? Do you need something? And, most of us will brush it off and say, we're fine. But those are indicators, right? And people who care about us, who see those signs, they'll let us know in some ways. We're not always the most self-aware. Of course, that is the goal, but we're human. So just that note on accountability as well. And, for me, I think one of the points that I feel so strongly about is we're surrounded by like hustle culture. I call it hustle porn, the busy life, people talk about the grind and things like that. And honestly, it all just makes me want to vomit. It's okay. Yes, have big dreams, work hard. But the idea that self-care and recovery isn't sexy is just ridiculous. The idea that taking a moment to pause, to take time out to evaluate, to dare to stop. Most of us, we often pretend that we're doing such important things when it's really busy work. To have the audacity to actually slow down or just stop and take inventory, I think is everything. I don't think that we can get to recovery without that taking a step back and pausing to reflect on where we are, where we need to be, and the direction we're actually going. Because sometimes we're actually going in a way that's maybe 3 degrees off of where we need to be. That's where our actions impact our trajectory, right? So I think we need that moment to step back and reflect.
can I say something on the accountability note? Just last night, and I'm a very practical person. Like I love the practical things we can do for accountability. I mean, I've been hearing that the most powerful thing that we have is a phone number. And my husband recently was like, I really need some accountability brothers. And he's like, but us guys, we don't talk. I mean, we don't really, like we don't talk as long as you girls, statistically, right? Men need about 10,000 words a day, and us women, we need between like 20 and 30,000 words a day. But anyway, so he says, we got to talking about how accountability is a practice. It's just saying, I'm going to practice picking up the phone. I said, when I started one of my best accountability sisters, I said, I'm calling you and I don't want to. I don't want to hear your voice. I don't want feedback. I'm just calling to say I need to stay in connection and community. And thank you so much for taking my call, even though I'm really not in the mood for advice. And guess what? She's one of my best friends because I was brutally honest. And we just practiced making a minute, 2-minute phone calls so that when I really was down, I knew she'd pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So just the practice of saying, hey, I'm just making a connection call. And it's good to hear someone else's voice on the other line. Thanks for taking my call. And then that practice of when we really are hurting or there is something that really sidelines our recovery work, that same person is going to pick up and say, hold on, I'm going to clear the decks for you for the next half hour, how long it takes, because we know they're already in our corner. We build that trust, the commitment, and there's such power in friendship and accountability.
Layla, stay there with that. And before you had that tool, in fact, before you had any of these tools, before you got into all of this, was there ever a time when you talked to us about times when you didn't see the signs of burnout before it was too late? How did you get here?
I think I'd have to start with being able to delineate where that threshold was of stress, right? I started talking about stress. Who's feeling stress? Where's that stress level at? Where, can you feel the tension? Is it rising? Is it calm and cool? And so for me, before I had the tools, I couldn't tell the difference between seeing the signs that I can see today, easily irritated, less patient, started losing focus. I think there was like a lie in the air about you can YouTube your way out of anything. No, you can't. Not if your body starts to burn out. And so as my body crossed the line of chronic fatigue, can't handle normal circumstances, had trouble bathing and feeding myself, and my body just completely beginning to shut down because of hormones and digestive issues and stuff like that, I think Michael alluded to it earlier, is that my body was going to be like, I'm going to shut you down because you don't even have a tool in your brain to say when to stop.
So was this from overwork? Was this from what were you full steaming ahead on in life?
I often say that I was addicted to excitement. I was addicted to stress and overperforming. I think a lot of it stemmed from, and this is new awareness, a lot of it stemmed from the childhood lie of never good enough, lost in a family of a sea of children, or, people that were unavailable to yield direction and loving care, to I need to strive, I need to be known, I need to be someone. When the truth was, I just needed to be myself and check in and say, where am I at? Instead, like Suzanne asked, what was it like before? Instead, I was checking out. I was numbing out. I was making horrible decisions with relationships, horrible decisions with food, even with movie choices, or, just weird things we wouldn't even think about as being a self-destructive decision, that I was just checking out and numbing out instead of checking in, being honest with myself so that I could be honest with you about how am I really doing.
Michael, what about you? When did you not see the signs of burnout before it was too late? What happened?
I mean, there certainly are some of the easy ones, that I actually didn't see the relationship that I was in actually being toxic for everybody around us, and not then showing up as who I can be and not being honestly myself. But if I go to the tough one, the hard one, for me, it was actually that strive for the next connection, that next person to talk to, that thing that I think so many of us men fall into, of go into predator mode almost, is that it's let's connect with the next person. And it came to this, it's such a very different experience, on at least from what I've observed, of when men are out looking to connect with other people versus how women are always chased after. And it's, at least for me, it actually came to this point where it was on automatic pilot, where that it no longer was there a logical decision-making process. It was next, to the point that my standards eroded on who that connection was going to be with. And to the point that it got painful, it actually got catastrophic for me. And not knowing that I was actually going down the wrong rabbit hole, where I was not performing at work. I kind of put everything else aside just to actually be connected online, chatting with people. That became my addiction. That became that connection, that bad choice that happened far more often than it should have. And not seeing the signs of myself of, now I'm starting to alienate in-person things mostly, and it became something that was more online. It's so easy to do that from that dark side of that particular kind of connection, and it eroded the events that it led up to, and then the fall after that. Even then, after everything came to a screeching halt, it's like, well, I didn't have any tools on board to actually figure out what's next. So unfortunately, bad choices lead to other bad choices. Had a lien on my house, had to, because I had taxes I didn't pay, because I was worried about kind of what that next thing was going to be. I got into a relationship that I thought was going to actually help me pull myself out of it, and did for a while. It actually helped me kind of see that I could be loved and be cared for, but that ended up becoming the lever that broke us too, because our past is our past. Our past can define us, or it can refine us. And I needed to learn that lesson. So it actually brought awareness to me of, well, you need to be making these choices moment by moment, not week by week, of who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? And is this choice, is this connection, is this action, is this step in alignment with who I feel I am? What about you, Suzanne?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Here, guys, we have different examples, right? Where Layla literally ran her body into the ground. Michael, it was, I would say, a heart issue, right? In the purest sense. There was something there that needed healing and recovery. And by neglecting our spiritual health, our mental health, the state of our heart, our need for healing, it doesn't have to be the same. And it could be, these are busy holidays. It could be just giving everything you have for your family and not taking a moment for you so that you don't feel depleted. And for me too, like I have several examples where I didn't realize it, but for me, working in a toxic environment is one example where I was literally, my job was conflict resolution. So there's something there. My job was dealing with deep systemic conflict. But then the context of the agency I worked with, there were problems there. There were deep problems there. And it was very difficult to be happy staying at a job for too long that felt draining, that felt soul crushing. The work I absolutely loved, but the context, the agency I worked for, there were problems there they violated my integrity. They violated my values. And yet I showed up because I was helping people in my job. And I deeply care about the citizens of this nation that I was able to serve. So I showed up for them, but I ignored me. I ignored my happiness. I ignored my joy. I ignored my growth because I was serving others and serving others pretty well, but at a great cost, so that I couldn't hold relationships. I withdrew from a lot of friends. It was a draining situation. And I ignored that toxicity. And I remember I realized I needed to make a change, but I felt so hardwired. My entire life was in one direction. My ego needs, I could see it, so at least I wasn't totally in it. But my ego needs were derived from something. My socialization was derived from there. My income, very important, our source of income derived from there. I felt hardwired and trapped into something to the point where I got to the point where I needed to blow it the fuck up. It was the only way for me. There was no subtle transition. You can't start a side hustle when you have a security clearance and you're working for the government. So I needed a clean break. And I warned people, and I don't think they believed me. And then I blew it all up. And as a result, I have to start over from nothing. But I am happier with nothing than being hardwired into a path that led to burnout and that led to such negative consequences for my soul, for my health, for everything. So we're all three. We've been there, guys. We've been there.
It reminds me of the saying that I use a lot in my Grace Revealed work of you can't give what you don't have. And I love hearing the parts of where you two came from. And one of the things in my own healing journey, a phrase that I'd never been introduced to was an intimacy disorder. And one of the things that I learned in my recovery was recovering an intimate relationship with myself.
Yes.
I think a lot of the times we're not taught or even led to some awareness about who am I, and who am I right now to form that baseline, like we talked about, taking an inventory to form a baseline of who am I really?
Yeah.
And where do I want to go from here that is in alignment with my values, in alignment with the core that lights me up inside when I know that I'm on the right path? That it's so easy to get so far disconnected from myself.
Yes.
With the amount of intoxicating information out there to still us down to the bare bones, to that primitive connection with myself, God, and others. But it's like amazing how intimacy disorders are real, not being able to bond appropriately with another human but it
Yeah,
starts with me. It starts with me.
that's
And being
right.
able to gauge the pause. I think we talked about just, being able to pause. So I didn't mean to derail. It was
No,
a
not at
thought that
all.
kept coming to me as I'm like hearing these hard um, environments relationally and financially and professionally that pull at us maybe when we're not even realizing how much they're taking away from our intimate connection with ourselves, so that we
Exactly.
can give from a place of abundance. We can give from a place of being full and whole as our true selves instead of fragments of who I want to be or who I think I am, that we can really be whole to be able to give from a place of abundance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's beautiful. And, Layla, you touched on this a little bit before, but now that you have tools, now that you have this ability, these superpowers that you have learned and earned, how has knowing the process of recovering helped you avoid going to those places? And, is it speed? What is it that the tools that you offer, how can they benefit people and how do they benefit you?
Mm. Well, I thought it's interesting that you use the word speed. There's a momentum to life. And I think what's really neat, I'm going to give you an example. With humans, we can't be going in two different directions at once, right? If I'm going this way, I'm going this way. I can't be going this way at the same time, right? So for me, if I'm going to be present, I'm Italian, I got to speak with my hands sometimes, is to be able to literally stop the momentum and think, oh yeah, my goal's over here. I literally have to remember this is who I am. So remind me of the original question, just so I stay on track.
No, your tools, like the tools that you learn.
Yeah.
How is your process of recovery? And I'm assuming you have a process.
Oh, I totally
right?
have a process.
How does it help you avoid burnout?
Okay. So the process is, number one is awareness for me. When I went to get some healing, I needed to get awareness. I didn't know I had trauma. My body did. My body kept the score. All I knew is dysfunction felt natural to me because that's where I came from. I needed awareness of what are these symptoms telling me about the root. If I wanted to change the fruit, I need to change the root. So sometimes it was an overhaul. And so today, now that I have tools in place, is I have to have a practice of regimenting the truth that combats a lie. Like I heard somewhere of like, I'm not good enough. No one's going to like you. Those, we all have those creepy voices that try to come back. They started a really long time ago. Anybody have those creepy voices that are decades, right? Oh, nobody really likes you. They don't like this. No. So every day I have a system of affirmations that tells me the truth of who I am and the truth of where I'm going. And it begins to rewire my brain so that those synapses in my brain can heal, and that those falsehoods that were reinforced by our environment as children and adolescents, they're reinforced by the lies and the people around us. They don't even know they're being sucked into the lie. So to me, it's rewriting the script, right? So I wake up every morning and I have to let go. I have to let go. I have a specific scripted journal questions, like Michael had alluded to. Ours are similar, but a little different. What was a victory of the day? I reflect on the day prior. What was a struggle of the day? What did I learn about myself? That's how I got to reconnect with myself. You guys, we're so dynamic. Look at us in this room. All of you have showed up. We are so intricate and dynamic. So what did I learn about myself? And then because of the connection with the word God, it can mean a lot of different things to people. I simplified it to, how did I experience love? Sometimes it could be through stopping and smelling flowers. Sometimes it could be eye contact with a little baby. You ever see a baby in the store and they look at you and they're like, I'm just glad to be alive, and you look them in the eye and it like brings you to life, That's my connection with love sometimes. Supernatural to me. That is like, I couldn't have made that baby look at me and be like, give me some life, child. They're like, so it's paying attention to having to admit, hi, I'm Layla. I come from a long line of severe abuse. I don't live there anymore. But I'm recovering from, my body's recovering from pain. My body is recovering from, I can't believe I even endured that. Oh my gosh. To what are some things that are going to bring me life today? We heard about meditation. I just practice saying, hey, God, here's all my crap from yesterday. I'm going to choose to live in today. I use some kind of simplistic EMDR type things. If I'm really stressed, I just.
For those who don't know, what is EMDR?
It's eye movement, I forget what it's called.
Sensitization and reprocessing.
Thank you. I'm like, somebody's going to remind me. It's a way to kind of get trauma from one side of the brain to the other so that you can have the memory without the pain. That's my version of it. Does that sound about right? Correct me if I'm wrong. But there's little things that, because our bodies have such a high influx of stimuli today, I work really hard to get back to a primitive connection with myself, even if it's slipping off my shoes and socks and being barefoot like I just did right now. You can't see my feet, but they're bare. Touch the ground.
Yeah.
Make eye contact with somebody in the room, So I'm getting off track a little bit, but those are some really important things. The journaling, the cathartic, writing it down, especially when something feels really significant. I spent 3 solid years when I had became bedridden quickly. I woke up one day, had a thriving career in architecture, had clients all over the country and some overseas, managing millions of dollars with the clients. And I could not get out of bed one day. I thought I was nauseous. I called in, I'm dizzy. It led to 18 months of being bedridden. I couldn't drive anymore. I couldn't grocery shop for myself anymore. I could barely prepare food. And I got to the point where I could barely bathe myself. And I was in my early 30s, you guys. So today I take it really seriously. Like, it's not an option. It's necessary to check in with myself. Have I eaten a healthy meal? Have I gotten solid sleep? Have I been alone too much? Am I, too angry about something that I haven't processed? What are my emotions? And I love to work with people about just identifying core emotions. Don't need you to be so complex. The faces with emojis on them help sometimes, but being able to just start with core emotions and say, what am I feeling? But what's the real root behind it? Because somebody, I react really strangely to, it'll look like anger, like, what? Why did that happen? We learned in my connection counseling with my husband, we don't ask why anymore. We asked, what happened? What happened that got you there? So I feel like I'm talking too much, but I do a lot of things to make sure that my basic needs are met. Like, it's like putting on the oxygen mask first. I carved out time to, even before coming here today, to be really still with myself, to listen, to see if there was a clear message that I was getting from God that would come from love of truth that I needed to bring here today. That was not me, but was just real truth, revelation of, these are tools that have taken me from being bedridden to being vibrant, to being childlike, to being in touch with myself, to really liking myself today. I don't know about anybody else, but I spent many years being very uncomfortable in my own skin.
I think everyone can relate to that for sure, guys. Haven't we all been through periods where we're just uncomfortable with who we are?
It's good to know
Definitely so,
ourselves.
right? Absolutely, Layla. Thank you so much for that. And Michael, as we're talking about this, and what Layla just said, it's all about being intentional in this practice. So, what do you think some of the reasons are that we avoid taking a moment to pause and take inventory?
So I think the big thing is kind of what you mentioned earlier, is that, if we slow down and take inventory, we might need to actually own our progress, own the good and the bad, because all of our choices have led up to this point in our lives. And I know that it's a practice, especially in the 12-step programs, of take a deep and authentic look, an inventory of your life up to this point. And I think that introspection is very much necessary. It is really that embracing of our shadow. And that, I was working with a client recently, and one of her comments was, that monster inside, I'm not sure if that is me or not. And it's like, well, I think all of us have to face that demon, that monster, that part of ourselves that we don't like, that we actually fear, that we actually are upset or angry, that is an aspect of who we are. And as soon as we start opening that up, then we have to own that as part of us. And one of the beautiful things that I like about the work of Charlie Morley around the shadow work, both the golden and the dark shadow. A lot of what he talks about is that the dark shadow are those pieces that you disown from yourself, that you dislike. And they tend to show up in your life of that person that you criticize, that you have a lot of judgment of outside. But there's also this golden shadow part too, which I think is sometimes more detrimental to us, is that those people that we admire, those people that we love how they do things, or they show up, and we put them on a huge pedestal. My opinion is that we wouldn't be able to even recognize any of those attributes of them unless they were part of us, unless we actually have that in us, and being able to embrace that. Because then when we shine, well, we become visible. We become visible to more people. We become visible to ourselves. And then we get judged on our best, which can be good, or can then be, do I need to live up to that standard every time now?
Guys, what about you? For those of you who are with us, put it in the chat. What are some of the reasons why you think we avoid taking that moment and pausing? We avoid that kind of self-reflection. I know there are also cultural biases to it as well. Like some cultures they're not down with that very much. It's just not considered relevant or appropriate. It definitely changes.
Like Laura in the chat said, sometimes when we slow down, it requires us to face realities that we may not be ready for. And
yes, again, and Donna, oh yes. Running from feelings at surface. If you take the time to slow down, we all know that. That mirror can feel a little harsh. And
it's in that candor, I think, that candor with ourselves, where we can learn how we get to the other side of this. How, especially whenever we're in that space of up against a barrier, when we're at that just before the breakthrough, is that when we slow down, we can actually, the way that I put it is that if you are actually standing in a corner, you can't see your way forward because you're standing in a corner. Sometimes you got to take a step back. Sometimes you need to do a 180-degree turn to actually see what's behind us versus what's in front of us, just to take that inventory. So
that's right. And Raphael says, we get caught up with our own demands. It's so correct. Like I had said, I was hardwired into a life that it didn't feed my soul. And yet I was doing good things and helping people, but it wasn't where my growth wasn't where my heart was. So it's so true. And it takes a lot of courage, guys. This personal growth journey takes a lot of courage. I love all of you that showed up today. You showed up for yourself. You're also showing up to represent the type of people that we all want to become. The ones that are willing to take a moment to be intentional about our lives, to be intentional about how we're growing, where we're going, who we're becoming. And we want you to know recovery it's okay to need recovery. It's okay, of course, first of all, to not be okay. It's okay. It's so like, guys, my first sentence was not like, Mom, I love you. Dad, I love you. My first sentence was defiance. Pure redhead. I'll do it myself. For me to admit I'm not okay takes the wind out of my sails. I'm, quote, strong. People who tell you, oh, you're so strong. I never wanted to be strong. I wanted to be happy, playful, joyful, full of love. But life will make us strong. And it takes strength to stop and reflect and look at where we are and to decide, we need to tweak this baby 3 degrees, or we need to tweak this bitch 50 degrees because we don't like where we're going. And recovery is everything, guys. We hope that, Layla, who's a gift to us and who we're so grateful for, has been able to share some with you. And we want you to be able to connect with her as well. But when we're talking about this, some of us will say, yeah, but I have big issues, or I just have too much on my list. Layla, we did want to ask you as we close up, like, is there a difference between short-term recovery and long-term recovery, and where do you start? Let's give some resources for people to begin if they're not sure where to go.
All right. Well, the most important day is today. The most important day is today. And it's kind of interesting because in my experience, our trauma can be so different. Some of it can be very deep and complex beyond our understanding. Some of it can be very brief, like we need to recover from an injury, a bone, a gouge, something. Relational injury can be some of the hardest, most complex. Toxicity from someone can be a long term. So I like delineating between short term and long term, but to kind of find some peace in that it is necessary to bounce back from things. And it's going to be more and more necessary the more complex our culture gets and our technology. But so I have a saying that when I rest, I find my best. Does anybody remember when stores used to be closed on Sunday? We literally had a day when almost everything shut down, because there was a value in our culture to bounce back and to rest. And then over time, people were like, oh, we have this newfound day in the week because certain people needed their medications or whatever. However, as a culture, we justified opening things slowly and gradually. It was subtle, but it also began to eat away at our vibrance. So the short term, whether you're entering into, I need to bounce back from this, it could even be a debt, right? It could be a financial thing. I need to bounce back from this and get here, or a lifestyle recovery. One of the best starting points is permission. I wished someone gave me permission to ask for help. Like Suzanne just highlighted with like, I hated not being the smartest person in the room. I hated feeling that my body was failing me, even though my brain was willing and like active. My body was like, sorry, not today, for 18 months. So there are acute situations where something happens and you need to get through it. There's a certain level of willingness and courage that creates a resilient environment where you can bounce back. Long term really depends on your willingness to be aware of your baseline. For me, I really hate the fact that sometimes there's a little piece of me that still feels like a battered animal that was found in a dumpster that doesn't know how to get dressed some days. There's like a little piece of me that has a traumatic reaction. But I want to just share really quick that in recovery, whether it's long-term or short-term, is that we always have triggers. We never know what they are. I'm not a big fan of avoiding triggers. The truth is that we're going to be triggered. And for some of us, we act out. For some of us, we avoid, we act in, we withdraw, we don't want to be seen. And some of us want to throw a tantrum, right? We all know little children are really good at reflecting the difference between avoidance and explosive. And so as we look at recovery from there's sometimes we get triggered and we're going to either act out or act in a way that's going to help us or it's going to hurt us. To remember on your journey of recovery, do I want to be well? Am I going to hurt and stay in the pain, or do I want to heal? And, there's that saying of we have to feel to heal, and to give yourself permission that no matter how long this takes, if it's 2 weeks or 2 years, I'm going to stay the course even when it becomes difficult, because how I feel today, I never thought I was going to make it. I never thought I was going to make it. I had to have my life insurance and, my death plan in order when I was 30 something years old. And so recovery is just remember, there's a value in awareness. There's a value in saying, I don't care how long this takes, I'm going to get through it. Our bodies can heal. Our brains can heal. And there is supernatural healing in relationships that just starts with us giving ourselves permission to ask for help. Did that kind of answer the question?
It does, honey. It does. Thank you. Michael.
So there's a couple of things that, I definitely mentioned earlier as far as like, for me around this recovery process, what was hugely important for me was finding and cultivating lifeline relationships. So that was a big thing. So for me, it started as a men's team, an area where we could be ruthlessly compassionate with each other, where you can scream at the top of your lungs and someone won't actually be offended by it because it's something that you need and it's not about them. So that also that reflective feedback environment that Suzanne was talking about earlier of, wow, you totally screwed that up. What were you thinking? Not from this place of let's pussyfoot around it. So those lifeline relationships are key for me. The other thing too is actually Layla talked about kind of the triggers, and that you have to have a plan in place, if you will. So for me, it's as much about the environment that you're in, is really set up your environment. That is the people, yes, the life plan relationships, but it's also the other pieces that you put in your life around that. What your calendar and your schedule is, what the space that you go to for tranquility. Do you have a space where you can go to for tranquility? Because the world can be a very busy place, and clutter is one of those things that doesn't really bring in the space, the container, in order to have getting back to that place of recovery. So that's another one thing. And then also, we really didn't talk about it much this time, but it was mentioned a couple of times. It is some sort of mindfulness practice. If that is meditation, if that is journaling, if that is reflective speaking with people, is, at least for me, that's how I recover. I had actually posted on LinkedIn, what does recovery mean to you? And Suzanne, of course, put it back to me as, what does it mean to me? And for me, recovery is stopping doing something that is expending energy, so you can actually gain more energy to actually move forward. So for me, it is that slowing down, that is stopping to take this time to make that phone call, to go to a space that is tranquil for me. For me, that's actually in the woods on the top of a mountain, and actually having a regular practice where you do actually do that introspection. So Suzanne, what about you? What's your recovery plan look like?
Mm. I think for me personally, recovery, I have, for those of you who don't know me, I have a lot of health needs. I am high maintenance. My body's high maintenance. I have a blood disease. And so for me, recovery actually starts, let's just put it, for me, it's a never ending cycle. And I require daily, weekly recovery practices. For me, recovery looks like maintenance. And I think that is a great best practice to think about as we think about integrating these practices. So for me, recovery is maintenance. It's part of maintenance. And it looks like, for me, adequate deep rest and sleep. It looks like nutrition. It looks like checking in with myself, usually about 4 times a day. Am I on task? Am I on point? Am I feeling vibrant enough to get everything on my agenda done? And who are the people in my life that I can reach and impact today? So I think you'll find most of us have these kind of set, but for me as well, it's nutrition, sleep, it is exercise, meditation, and then those check-in points. So for me, recovery is maintenance, and sometimes I require longer maintenance, right? Your car light goes off and you have, scheduled maintenance. That is very much me. So also seasonally, some people burn the same all the time. For me, the winter, colder weather, it's more reflection, more planning, more introversion, more learning. And then for me, the warmer months are execution and implementation. So I'm also cyclical in nature, I guess.
So as we're kind of wrapping up our conversation, we are curious, for those of you who are in our audiences, what are your recovery practices? What is that you use to build your energy back up? If you actually want to type that in the chat, if you actually want to raise your hand, we can actually bring you up and have you share that with us. We'd love to know kind of what your practice is, because this is an opportunity for all of us to learn from each other. I love this idea. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So, and curious about kind of what your takeaways are from what we've discussed here. We've had some great comments that were actually typed in the chat, and we'd love to know kind of if are we hitting the mark? Is this something that is relevant? Does this resonate with your journey so far in your life? I love this quote that Godson put in the chat here. Tomorrow is history. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. So a gift is a present. Being in the present moment is a gift that allows oneself to take the first step in the journey of self-care and recovery. He used to be in the past with agony of regret and worried about the future. Now it's about learning to be present in the moment. Layla very much said that earlier, is the most important day is today. The most important moment is now.
Mm-hmm.
So I see Raphael also, meditation twice a day, exercise, protect sleep, and a nap. Naps are golden. They are magical. But also, what nutrition are you putting in your body? Are you giving yourself quality fuel? Compassion, another big one too.
Ooh, I love that one, Donna. Compassion for sure. So important, guys. Forgive yourself. It's okay. And it's okay if it's not okay too. I love that. Breath work, yes, so important to activate the parasympathetic system, for sure. My body's also super programmed environmentally. It's very strange. Like when I get in my yoga studio, my entire body changes by being in the room. Before I've done anything, my body knows what's coming. It's very interesting. Environmental factors are so important, guys. Don't underestimate that.
So these are a couple of the things that we hope that you took away from our conversation today. So one is, if we haven't beat this enough, is recovery is part of the growth cycle, and it is required, not optional. Primarily because for whatever reason, the universe likes to reset itself and actually prove to us that recovery is necessary. So I personally would rather choose to do it intentionally rather than waiting for the universe to slap me upside the head in the most caustic and acute way possible. But also, there are these practical exercises we can do, like the breath work that Layla started us out with. If it is a meditation practice or journaling, if it is finding your people or your place where you can recover. But all of that doesn't happen unless you pause to reflect, take inventory, and intentionally recover. It is one of my core things in my practice as a coach is we're going to grow one direction or the other. Wouldn't you rather grow in the way that you actually choose rather than a cancer, which actually grows on its own without end? I personally would actually rather grow because of the work that I'm doing and the lessons that I'm taking and the choices that I'm making than go back to living on autopilot.
Yeah, and I'm super curious, guys, are there any areas of your life that maybe recovery's needed that you haven't thought about for, or
I think it's important to remember that isolation is a very dangerous place to be. Isolation and connection. Statistically, human beings can recover deeper and quicker in small groups.
Mm.
And in
So
what we're doing right now. That's my little bubbly gratitude I feel in the room as we're getting feedback. And I love hearing if there's like a nugget, if there's like something still on your mind and heart that's burning within you to just let it out, share it with us. Because like this type of connection and hearing from everyone, it heals me. It brings me
Mhm.
into like I'm being my true self at the right place at the right time. And to know that like there's no pressure on anyone to have to go it alone.
Yeah. And Raphael, I see your comment. I think globally, after the period we've just been dragged through, all of us need to work on our connectivity, on our social trust, on our social connections, and those trusted relationships. It is so important. And we have been intentionally isolated. And, for whatever reason, I think it's super important that we understand the implications of that personally on our personal relationships, how it impacts our lives. I think many of us need to really look at healing our personal connections, our relationships, our connectivity to society in general. And also, this time, though, we have the opportunity to reframe those connections or choose healthier ones as well, like-minded hearts and souls. So I highly, I just can't say that enough. This is our opportunity to really strengthen those connections and heal relationships. And find our people, find our tribe.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
And obviously with my side of the story, it's finding the right connections, the right people who are supporting you too, is find who it is that resonates with you. Because I think that it's key for it not to be those people who are just going to give you the good, or it's the flip side of that,
Yeah.
not good, give you just the bad,
Yeah. That burn.
is someone who's willing to support you, care about your growth almost as much as their own.
Yes.
Really key for me.
Absolutely. And there are multiple forms of detox. Sometimes we need a people detox. So I've done it myself. And that is, by the way, guys, part of recovery is removing toxins, removing the sources of toxins, the sources of tension. And so sometimes that's the media we're letting in. Sometimes that's the people we're connected to. Sometimes it's the own negative thought pattern, our own operant conditioning that we've inherited, picked up, or it's been shoved down our throat. So this is a time for recovery leads to freedom.
Thank you for that, Suzanne. So I do want to share this gratitude from me and from all of us for all of you actually showing up with us and actually being present, being in the room, being part of this as our journey too, because I very much appreciate how much we get to grow, how much we are allowed to grow as we share our stories. This is actually cathartic for me, actually being able to share my journey with you and getting your feedback as well, for us to be able to learn from each other. We do these sessions once a month, and this coming week is us going to be scheduling out the next year of these sessions. So we actually did 13 sessions this past year as Elevation Mindset, where we covered things like beliefs and accountability and confidence and courage. And this is the last of our year. We're looking forward to bringing the next level of this for next year, where we do get this opportunity to have this conversation with you and encourage you to play full out when you actually do join us. If that's in the chat or coming up and talking with us, we would love to have this be a conversation. We don't want to be just people who are spouting out to you and not it's helpful for us to share knowledge, but I think that we grow when we also get it reflected back in other people's practices that can make our lives better as well.
That's right. You guys come with knowledge of your own that we love to learn from. So we're grateful for you. We recognize your wisdom too. And we're grateful that you shared this time with us. So stay tuned for 3.0 next year. And we look to better serving you and to showing up for you and to having conversations that just inch our lives a little closer to where we were meant to be. So thank you so much for your time. We love you. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. And go be great.
I was gonna, if I can, because I don't get to
Yeah.
be here every month. I was here 1 month this year. I can't remember which one. I want to say it was like just February, March. But I love staying connected too. I was gonna throw my website in the chat if anybody is interested in, I do like some self-care tips and videos. If you put your name and email in there, or whatever, just a way to stay connected if you're interested.
Sweet.
I can
Yes,
throw
go
that in
for
the
it.
chat.
Drop it in. And Layla, your email, your actually website will be on our YouTube channel though. We already have that set up for you.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, gracerevealedllc.com is my website. We're growing and doing trainings for people. So the goal is to educate groups of people, but I also love to encourage people. Just you open your inbox, you need something, or you get on YouTube. I made it my life's mission. So it's my third going into 4th year of Grace Revealed, and the grace is the power in the pause, giving ourselves permission to do what we're doing here.
Cool.
Breathe, and then start again and keep going. So yeah, thanks again for inviting me. It was really just a joy to be here. And I'm so grateful for how you guys
so much, Layla. Beautiful.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend and your week and the rest of your year, because this year is wrapping up quickly and we look forward to seeing you in the next year. Take care. Bye now.
Bye, guys.